Hello and welcome everyone to day 3 of the Astro Live Partner Showcase. We're excited to kick off today with OwnerRez. We have Paul and Ken. Maybe both of you might see Paul's name twice. Ken, will you raise your hand too? That's Ken. And that's Paul. And I'm going to turn it over to them in just a minute. You know, the purpose of this session is for folks to get a quick overview of what OwnerRez is, the product features and differentiating capabilities of the product. And I just want to say too, from an Astro point of view and talking to our members, OwnerRez has been such a great partner. And really, this is technology that was founded on and really focuses on the Astro member persona, kind of who these entrepreneurs are, who you are owning, 1 to 5 homes. And I know OwnerRez has come such a long way, always adding new integration partners and features. And so I'm looking forward to learning something new today too. With that, I think I'm going to hand it over to you, Ken, to drive the deck. So I will give you the full stage and take it away.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here. And I think, if not yet, then any second now you'll have on the screen our main OwnerRez booking screen. And when we first started setting this up a few minutes ago, it was pointed out by the marketing folks that that's a very busy screen. And, I'm going to make a virtue of necessity. It is a busy screen. And that actually works very well explaining OwnerRez, because if you are a vacation rental owner, you probably have a very busy life. And it's probably become more so in the last year or two, because if there's one thing we've learned, you don't want to have a single point of dependency as far as where your business is coming from. If you're dependent on just one source of bookings and guests, that is a risk factor. And it is that precise problem that OwnerRez is designed to solve. OwnerRez is built to integrate with as many different sources of bookings and other services as possible. So for example, if we look at this admittedly very busy screen, you can see all those little bubble blobs in there, and they are each individual bookings. Now let's just mouse over them real fast. Here we can see this one, it says Shenrent, that's a direct booking. Here we have one from Vrbo, so that's a Vrbo booking. There's another Vrbo booking. If we look around, we'll find other ones. If we hunt, we'll find a TripAdvisor or Booking.com, Airbnb. And you can see these are all coming in from different places, different sources, different channels, but they're brought together into the same system so you can see with them and interact with them in as much as similar a way as possible. Now, that's not always going to be exactly identical. For example, with Airbnb, we know Airbnb does the charges of their own guests. So we don't have direct control over getting the money from the guests. But we do at least know what was charged. So we can see these are all the charges that were made by Airbnb. This is Airbnb service fee. So our accounting is going to be accurate because it's all there. With Vrbo, we have an integration with them that gives you some special privileges. You see, we have a card on file. We get the guest's credit card. So we are able to make the charge to the guest using their own credit card number. And you can see here it is. We have charged that, which puts you in complete control. If there needs to be a refund, if they want to stay an extra day, if you need to make any changes, you don't have to get permission from Vrbo to do that. You can just do that right here in OwnerRez with their credit card. And then, of course, we have direct bookings. And for those, obviously, you're always in control over how that works. We've got your charges and the transactions and paying with a credit card, just like you'd normally expect. Now, most of these use credit cards because that's what guests want, but you have flexibility there too. You can accept payments through any means. You can accept check payments. You can accept cash. If somebody wants to pay you in gold bullion or Bitcoin, it doesn't matter. You can record that in OwnerRez. Whatever you're satisfied with, you can just tell OwnerRez that you've gotten paid that, and it will credit it to their account. So that gives you flexibility for sources of bookings, for channels, for how you want to be paid. You can change. We have many different payment processors that we integrate with. This particular company accepts checks, and they have OwnerRez.net, but you don't have to go with them. You can go with all of these companies that we support, and many of these companies are actually much larger than they appear. For instance, Converge, that is one brand name, but it's really a giant conglomerate. They have many other brand names that they operate under, and it's all the same system, and you can use any of those. Similarly, OwnerRez.net, that is a major interchange that works with thousands of banks that we've never heard of. Probably your bank works with them, and so you can use that to connect through to us. Of course, we have ones that we recommend, We have a whole list of those, but you can use any of the ones that we support, and that gives you the flexibility to work with what works for you. We also have many integrations with other partners, and let me just give a shout out to some of those partners, not specifically because that would take up all of my time, but many of them are members of Astrho as well and are participating in this conference. So you can look in our systems on our support docs and see the systems that we integrate with. We support with a number of dynamic pricing systems. We work with a number of door lock systems if you're dealing with remote locks. We have several guest book systems. If you like to do the online guest book with various people, where the guest receives a link to a guest book that's designed to work, basically give the information about your property, but in an online format, we have several companies that we integrate with that do that. The OwnerRez philosophy is to try to offer you the maximum possible flexibility, the maximum integration with the maximum number of other providers and choice, so that you can choose what works for you and your business. Because for everybody, that's going to be a different answer. Do you need to work with Airbnb? Maybe you do. Do you need to work with Booking.com? They're huge overseas. Maybe you need TripAdvisor. Maybe you have Vrbo, which we certainly recommend. They're one of our favorites. They work everywhere around the world, pretty much. Then there's various regional listing sites. That's why we support the Internet iCal standard, so that even if it's a site that we've never heard of, as long as they support the same standard, you can integrate with them. Similarly, everybody in the world has email. That's why we have a very powerful system for configuring automatic email templates and triggers. Now, we don't do that necessarily for you because your business is not going to be the same as somebody else's. So you have to invest the time in thinking through, okay, what emails do I want to send to my guests under what circumstances? You can see this particular company has done a lot of work on it. They've got 60 separate emails. Now, not every guest is going to get all 60 emails, of course. They have different emails set up for different situations, different properties, different conditions, different constraints. They invested a lot of time in doing that. But once that's been set up, the computer will take it from there forever, sending those emails out to your guests automatically at the appropriate time under the circumstances that you have configured. So OwnerRez is not the sort of thing that you flip a switch and it works. You do have to invest time, because in your own head is how you run your business. I don't know that. OwnerRez doesn't know that. You know that. You have to configure that in OwnerRez and get that knowledge out of your head, which takes work. But once you do that, then forever, OwnerRez will be saving you time every day while you're doing other things, while you're asleep. The computer will be automatically taking care of the routine rote stuff, the welcome email that everybody gets, the email before they leave telling them what they need to do, the email after they left asking for a review. If they don't pay, it'll bug them about that. And eventually you can set it up to bug you if they really don't pay. All of these things that you have to remember on your daily to-do list, you can configure in OwnerRez to be taken care of automatically. And all those other features, things that we don't necessarily offer, odds are we have a partner that does. So you can look on our support docs, or you can reach out to us and ask about that, and we can point you in the right direction. That gives you enterprise level capabilities that you might expect to be paying large amounts of money for an enterprise level software. OwnerRez is enterprise grade software, and it gives you those capabilities. But we'd like to think that we cater more to the smaller people, and so it is affordable even for those companies that are don't own 500 properties. On that note, we have a property management module, which if you only own 1 or 2 properties is probably not relevant. But if you own or operate more, if you have a few dozen or perhaps a few hundred, we have the ability to record what you'd pretty much logically expect. We can keep track of commissions. You can configure which owner gets which commissions. Different owners perhaps have different contracts. Maybe one's your brother-in-law and you only charge him 5%, and then somebody else you charge 15%. You can configure that, and OwnerRez will do all the math, and then you can have the owner statements that you show to reveal to them what they received. So here we see an owner statement for May for this particular company, which is a client of this OwnerRez account. They received money for these particular bookings. This is how much they get and how much they are due. And these are the expenses that were paid for by the property manager that are reduced, that are deducted from the remittance to that company. You can see they've done some mowing. Here we have the evidence, invoices, photos of the mowing that's done, cleaning invoices, etc. It's all kept in here safe, so it's included in the statement, and we can see that this company would be due all this money, but then there's all those expenses that are reduced. So down you get the bottom line, total bookings, total expenses, and that's what's due. And OwnerRez does all the math for you. All you got to do is write them a check. And as we saw here, this company has a bunch of different clients, and all of this is able to be set up to be calculated automatically, which saves you a bunch of time at the end of the month, based on the data that has been brought in from OwnerRez, which, as we saw at the beginning, it was brought into OwnerRez from all the different channels: Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking.com, direct bookings, etc. All that data funnels into the one place, which allows you to control it this way in a unified way and have singular reports that have everything in them. Let's take a quick look at some of our connections. This company connects to a number of our partners, not all of them, there are others, but this is a fairly comprehensive list of the major ones. You can see we integrate with Airbnb and Booking.com. Canada says they got bought out by Vrbo, so we do integrate with them through that. Fine Rentals, Florida Rentals, Home to Go, that's one that's growing. They're stronger in Europe, but they're now moving into North America. Howfie, TripAdvisor, which is also FlipKey. And then we have other ones that are joining on a regular basis that have the integrations. The virtue of an integration is that when you have everything connected fully, let's take a look at Airbnb. We can see the sync status. We have an everything sync. Well, what does that mean? It means what it says. Everything in your Airbnb listing is controlled through OwnerRez. So when you set up in OwnerRez your properties, you have your photographs, you have your amenities, you have your descriptions of your rooms and everything. You set that up in one place in OwnerRez, and then with the channels that you've connected to, that information is automatically pushed out there. So supposing you repaint your house, you don't have to change the pictures in 6 different places. You can change that in OwnerRez, and it will automatically update Airbnb and Vrbo and TripAdvisor and many of these other places for you. So that saves you time. We can see how that looks. If we look in one of the properties and we see, let's pick a likely looking one. We can see here are the photographs. And if we decided, well, we want to put new pictures in here, we could simply upload those and replace them. And this is very similar to what you're used to on Vrbo or Airbnb. But you do it here in one place, and then it does it everywhere else. So that is a significant time saving for you. That's also true when you have a new property. If you've purchased a new property or you have a new client, if you're a PM, you can create that property in OwnerRez as a new property. And yes, that does take time because you have to put in the pictures, you have to put in the descriptions, you have to program the rooms and the amenities. But once you've done that once, you can then push it out to your listing channels as a new listing, which again, saves you time. You don't have to go through all that effort creating a new listing on Airbnb and Vrbo and the others. It just pushes that and does it for you through OwnerRez. Let's take a look at a booking and some of the communications that are handled there. If we look under the messages, we can see these are messages that OwnerRez would be sending under certain circumstances. So for instance, the guest notification, this wasn't sent. Well, that's because this happens to be an Airbnb booking. OwnerRez knows that. There's no reason to do that because Airbnb sends them that. Third-party alerts, these are for the cleaners. So we automatically send an email to the cleaners saying, hey, we got a booking, make sure you put it on the calendar. My notification, that's to the owner, telling them that they received a booking. Payment reminders, security deposit reminders, these are skipped. Well, again, this is Airbnb. As we know, in Airbnb, they collect all the money. So there's really no reason to worry about that. Financial details to the owner, channel booking, request renter agreement. We have renter agreements that are legal contracts that we ask all of the guests to sign. You can set up OwnerRez to have that done automatically. It's e-signed, basically a DocuSign sort of thing. And this is the message that is sent out automatically to every guest asking them to do them. They work a little bit differently because of the different channels. They work not quite the same. So you can see Booking.com has a separate message that's sent to them. Well, this booking is not for Booking.com, so that message won't be sent. Here we have reminders if they have not paid or they have not signed on time. This particular guest, that's not a problem. They did everything up front, so we won't nag them needlessly. And if we just go down, you can see all the rest of the messages that are sent if necessary and not if not. So here we are, we sent them the door lock code. That was necessary. Here, we could have sent them a different code at a different time, and that wasn't appropriate because we sent them there. We have other reminders and welcome packets and other reminders that weren't necessary because they did what they should have done. So that's where you can safely set up an automatic bug them, bug them, bug them if they don't do what they need to do, such as paying or signing the rental agreement. But if they do it right up front, then the reminders won't be sent. OwnerRez is smart that way. Getting ready for departure, and there's the review request, so we can see all of those things were sent out. And if I wanted to, I could go over here and see the history. These are all the emails that were sent out for this booking. I could go in and read one of them and take a look at them and see what they had to say, just to make sure that everything was correct. We can even see under certain circumstances whether the email was opened. Now, if you're familiar with how email works, that's not always reliable just because of the way the email system works. It could just be their spam filter that opened it. But if it wasn't opened, then it's probably a good sign that something went wrong, particularly if none of them were opened. Maybe their email is wrong. Maybe they typed their email address in wrong and you need to reach out to them in some other means. So if we were to go back to the main screen of the booking, we can see that. Well, we do have their address. We do have their phone number all right there. So if for some reason they weren't doing something that they needed to and you need to get a hold of them, it's all right here in one place. You can just pick up the phone and call. So we've had a very lightning tour of OwnerRez. There is a great deal to it. There is, let's be honest, it is a complicated system because it has to be when we connect to all these different other channels that all have their own quirks, all these other partners that have their own features that they offer. It's not something that you just flip a switch and you're done. You do have to invest time in it. But if just in that way, you can think of it a little bit like an accounting system. If you need to do accounting and you install QuickBooks, great, you've installed QuickBooks. Your work has only just begun. You now need to configure in QuickBooks, well, what kind of a company are you? What accounts do you use? Who are your clients? What are how you have to set that up. But once you've got it set up, then you're going to start saving you time from doing it with a pencil and paper. And that's how OwnerRez works. And if you invest the time in configuring all of your business intelligence that right now is stuck in your own head and not anywhere else, it'll start paying for itself very quickly in saved time.
So I do have a quick round of questions, FAQs. I'm going to throw them at you if that's okay, Ken.
Absolutely.
Okay. You talked a lot about all the great guest messaging and you showed a lot about email, but I think I saw you have text, SMS as well. Is that correct?
That is correct. We do offer SMS messaging. Unfortunately, in North America only. There are billing and legal issues relating to Europe, which we are still pursuing.
Great, though. That's a helpful clarification. And then simple question, how much does OwnerRez cost?
We have a pricing calculator that there is no single answer. It depends really on how many properties you have. You pay per property and per of the features that you're using. Some of the premium features cost extra, like property management. There is no commission. You do not pay a percentage of your revenues or of your billings or anything like that. There's nothing like that at all. You pay a predictable amount that you can calculate using our calculator based on the number of properties that you have. And the more properties that you have, it continues to go up, of course, but it goes up more slowly.
Maybe I'll just say starting price for one home.
$35 a month.
Okay, great. $35 a month. Okay, awesome. And then you talked about payment quite a bit, which is really obviously super important. And we all know Airbnb is the merchant of record, so a lot of that doesn't apply. But Vrbo has been a point of conversation with some of our members. Can Vrbo also be the merchant if I want them to be? Is that a choice?
That's an excellent question. Right now, if you are connected to Vrbo using our integrated API connection, you must be your own merchant of record.
Okay.
Or if you are not connected to Vrbo using that system, if you're just using the iCals, then they are the merchant of record. They are currently working on a system whereby you can have it sort of straddle. You can use the API connection, but they're still the merchant of record. That's something that we're very eager to have, particularly for our overseas clients, because we don't necessarily support a bank payment processor in Kyrgyzstan, but they do because they're huge. And if they can rig that up, that will be awesome. But they're dealing with all those legal issues right now. I don't know if they're going to have that capability this year. They had hoped to, but they're actively pursuing it. We are regularly discussing with them, and that will be available in the midterm future.
And I know that somewhat then ties to like the way Airbnb might pay some of the taxes on my behalf. Would Verbo do that too? So I guess that's something to just keep an eye on.
Exactly, because if you are the merchant of record, you're collecting all the money, so you got to deal with your own taxes. If they're the merchant of record, that's on them. So they have to make sure all the legal ducks are in a row before they're able to offer that.
So I have one final question for you. I think you have some raving fans, customers that love your product. What would you say are the top 2 things people love about you?
Well, I think that the top 2 things is, number one, the automation, that once everything is set up, all this stuff just sort of magically happens and you don't have to worry about it. And the other strength that we have is our technical support. Now, I'll give a caveat. We don't do live phone calls. You can't pick up the phone and call and get us. We just don't have the staffing for that. But if you send in with an email, you will get an answer back, number one, pretty quickly, usually within a few hours. And number two, the reason that we don't have the staff to support phone calls is because we're very particular about having our staff that are trained and that are knowledgeable and can actually give you a useful answer. So you will get an answer and it will be useful. It's not just some script that you're getting in most cases.
That's great. Those are 2 great features that customers love. And I would reinforce that. I've heard that before too, that you're very responsive. The customer support side is very reliable. So that's great. Well, I know we're at time. Any final thoughts before we wrap?
Well, I'm sure everybody here is already aware of Astrho, and we are very proud and pleased to be partnering with Astrho because, again, something else that we've learned in the last couple of years is there is strength in numbers. And if everybody is individual, nobody cares about one little individual that owns one property. But when everybody joins together, well, there you got to get listened to, and maybe you can get your voice heard.
Yeah, no, and you guys have been a great partner, and our goal is to continue to educate owners, whether or not they use OwnerRez, because a lot of what you're doing is also just setting the tone for what owners need to be more professional and up-level their business. So thanks for your time today, Ken and Paul. We look forward to the next one.
Thanks for having us.
Have a great rest of the day, and we'll see those in the audience on our next call. Talk soon. Thanks. Bye now.